Welcome to the Bourbon Life Podcast, your source for all things bourbon. Join your hosts, Mark and Matt, as they drink and review bourbons, share news about upcoming events, interview the who's who in the bourbon world, and, most importantly, bring you along for the fun of living the bourbon life. Now, here's your hosts, Mark and Matt.
All right, everybody, welcome back for another episode of the Bourbon Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mark, and with me, as always, is my good friend, my co-host, my toboggan-wearing buddy, Matt. Matt, what's going on tonight, man?
Hey, not much, Mark. It's a beanie, remember? Come on, man.
Oh, damn it. That's right.
Here,
beanie. I'm sorry. I'm an old man, so I can still call them toboggans. Yes, Matt. So how are you doing besides wearing your beanie, man? You doing all right tonight?
Yeah, I'm doing great. The mustache is finally gone, so I'm doing awesome.
I'm telling you, you should have shaved it off and glued it onto a little piece of paper. I'm telling you, man, and just framed it as your
There wasn't much there to begin with. I don't know. It would have been just a framed piece of paper. There was hardly enough mustache to go around.
So next year you need to do that, and then we can use it like the woolly worms, where you judge how bad how bad the winter's going to be by whether or not it's light or whether it's dark black like a woolly worm. So we'll use your mustache as our guide for the badness of the winter season that we're facing. Maybe not.
If we're judging anything by my facial hair, it's going to be a bad winter.
Oh yeah, but other than that, Matt, you doing okay?
Yeah, Mark, I am. I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm hanging in there. Happy to be back. We're getting close to the holiday season here, so I'm pretty excited. That's my time of year. I'm all about it. I start listening to Christmas music usually right around Halloween.
Yeah, that's obscenely early. I remember you telling me that before.
Yeah, I can't help it, man. I just love it. I love the old timey, like the 1940s and 50s, kind of big band. I don't know, Dean Martin and those guys. I love that Christmas music, that era. So I just love listening to it. It just relaxes me and puts me in a good mood. And I love watching old Christmas movies as well. So this is my time of year. Okay, man, enough with that, right? We need to move on. We need to thank our sponsor, which is the Stave Restaurant out in Millville, Kentucky. They provide an excellent Kentucky elevated cuisine. Chef Jonathan Sanning prepares some great meals out there. We were just out there last Thursday, as a matter of fact. Castle and Key just released their very first rye, the Restoration Rye. So everybody had been waiting for that for several years, and they had a pre-release dinner out there, and it was just a great time, and a lot of people from Castle and Key. So we really enjoyed our time out there. But check the Stave out online. It's thestavekentucky.com. You can order to-go food. You can still eat out there. They got a tent. We sat around the campfires. They got like 5 or 6 different little fire pits, and it's really cool. So they have little wood logs that they've cut down into little stools you can sit on. They got a picnic table beside it. You can reserve those fire pits, and it was just a lot of fun. So check them out. We appreciate their support and want to encourage everybody, especially now that we're still under the governor's executive orders to close down the in-person dining inside. All our restaurants need all the help they can get. So check them out if you would. And with that said, Matt, you want to tell everybody who we have on the show tonight?
Absolutely. We have got another long distance dedication here coming to us from Fallon, Nevada, which I've actually been to before. We have Colby and Ashley Frey of Frey Ranch Distillery. Colby and Ashley, welcome to the Bourbon Life Podcast.
Thank you for having us. So we got to find out, how did you make it to Fallon, Nevada?
Well, that's what I want to know too.
It was actually on my way through driving. I've been through a couple times on the drive from Vegas to Reno. I used to lived in Vegas for a winter, and then I worked for a company that was headquartered out of Reno, and so I've had to make that drive before.
Yeah, that's a long drive.
Yeah, that's a lonely drive too.
There's about 2,000 people between Vegas and Fallon, probably total. Miles. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thank you guys for being on the show. We really appreciate it. It was great because we had Johnny Jeffrey on the show just a few weeks ago, and I'd heard about you guys obviously on Instagram, seen some stuff about you guys, and Johnny talked about you, and we actually drank some of your rye, which was really cool that he was able to do that for us, and I'm happy that it just worked out that we were able to get you guys on the show tonight. And I know it's kind of short, like 2 or 3 weeks notice, but we really appreciate you guys working it into your schedule, especially around the holidays, and being with us tonight. So I'm looking forward to this. And it's funny because the more, I mean, now that we had you guys booked on Instagram, I just keep seeing more and more stuff about you guys. So you're obviously doing a great job getting information out there about who you are. So I tell you what we do. We usually like to let our guests kind of tell everybody a little bit about themselves, but I have a bad habit. We do this all the time. We start talking about stuff. I know I caught myself, didn't I? We forget to talk about what we're drinking. So let's start off with that first. So if you want to, Colby and Ashley, if you all want to just tell everybody real quick what it is that we're going to drink in this first round so we know what we got.
Yeah. So what we're going to drink this first round is our flagship bourbon. It's 90 proof. It's 4 grains. It's wheat, rye, barley, and corn. So it's really got a lot of differences in flavor. We got a little bit of spiciness from the rye, a little bit of creaminess from the wheat. And it's aged an average of 5 years. But the important part about it and what makes us different than most brands is that all the grain that this bourbon was made from is grown right here on our farm. And so we have total control. We even malt the barley malt, the malted barley that's inside this whiskey right here on site too. So we have total control over every part of the whole process.
Wow. That's great. And so I want to ask, because I know when we talked to Johnny, and I don't want to keep bringing up Johnny, but that's kind of how it opened the door for us. But they talked about, they call themselves the Bentley Heritage Estate Distillery. So my understanding, I guess estate distillery is a specific classification. Is that correct? And where you all...
In Nevada, it is.
Even in Nevada. And so our legislature designated estate distilleries as distilleries that grow their own grain. And so we're an estate distillery also. But in the distilling world, a lot of distilleries use the word estate that might not grow their own grains. And so we felt that, it's a term taken from the wine industry. And we just felt like for us, we're an estate distillery, but we call ourselves farmers plus distillers.
It's a little more descriptive, I think, of exactly what we're doing, because we're not only farming and we're not just distilling, we're farming and distilling, and everything happens inside.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. I just want to make sure, because it seemed like I remember Johnny talking about the fact that it was a, something from Nevada, the legislature, that there is, classification under the law in Nevada of what constitutes an estate distillery. And I thought, I assumed based on the information I saw about you guys, and I remember, I think Johnny had said you guys are I think there's only 2 of you guys technically that are estate distillers, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on this bourbon, so this is a straight bourbon, which means it has to be at least 2 years old. But you said the average is 5 years. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. This is what we're drinking right now. Yeah. It's batch 1 of our flagship bourbon.
Okay. So batch 1, that means, this is literally your first batch?
Yep.
Or is it?
Batch number awesome. 1. Yeah. And I think on the bottom, yeah.
I was going to say, because I was looking at the bottle, Matt's got the bottle in there with him. Matt, and I guess we should tell everybody, Matt and I are together in the same location, but we're socially distant. We have our own space here, but Matt's got the bottle in there. And if I remember correctly, Matt, it does say batch 1 on it, right? So I saw that today and I was like,
it sure does.
Really?
Yeah.
This is batch 1. Well, that's pretty cool. Yeah. I feel no, that's pretty special. Matt, that bottle stays with me. I'm sorry. You do not get to take that one home with you. So getting back to the bourbon, we'd like to talk about what we pick up on it, Matt. So you had a chance saw you over there nosing it a little bit. What are you picking up on this?
I get a really, really great nose with the corn on it, especially like really sweet corn, like cornflakes. And then I'm getting some honey coming across and a little bit of a berry. Like it's just a slight little touch of some berries on the nose.
Yeah, I definitely get that sweetness. I see where you're saying the honey, because that really hadn't registered with me. It was just a sweetness. The corn does come through a little bit, but not in the context of like being a very young bourbon at all. That's really not the way that it's coming across. So it's not like a grainy type of bourbon flavor that you'd get from a really young bourbon. This has got a very, very nice rounded flavor to it completely. And the nose on it is really good. What about the palate for you, Matt? What are you picking up on that?
Ooh, well, first thing I'm getting, I'll start by kind of talking backward on this one. The finish, that rye's got a nice finish that it adds a really, really great spice that sticks with you. Man, that's got a really pleasant finish. Also, like I'm picking up on some of the wheat too, and kind of, I think it's helping to round things out, the wheat on the palate, but I get really great barrel out of it. So I'm picking up on the oak, and again, the corn's coming through. Nice vanillas as well. Vanilla and a caramel. But that rye finish is so pleasant.
Yeah, that's what, I love it when you take a sip of a bourbon and you get that sweetness from the corn. And the wheat that's in there, like you said, I think it's giving it kind of that creaminess, really coats the mouth well, the oiliness to it. And then you get that spice that just kind of creeps up slowly, replacing that sweetness. So you get that sweetness at first, and then you get that little spicy kick from that rye. So Colby, what made you all decide on your flagship bourbon here, rather than just going with a rye mash bill or a wheat mash bill? What made you decide that you wanted to go ahead and do it? Actually, just say, hey, we're going to start with a 4-grain.
That's a great question. And so my family's been farming in Nevada since 1854, and we've always grown wheat, rye, barley, and corn. And we really wanted to showcase all the grains, and it was really a hard decision. And so I've always loved whiskeys, and I really couldn't decide if I liked wheated bourbons or high ryes or what. I liked them all at different times, and we really wanted to have a 4-grain mash bill that really showcased all the grains, and we really like the idea of, it's almost like the mouthfeel is a little bit creamy too.
It's like rich.
It's rich. Yeah. And I think that the wheat contributes to that mouthfeel. And then the rye, like you said, kind of has a really nice finish to it. And so for me, I always say that a finish to me is just as important as the all the other, the smells or the, your taste and everything else, because if it has a bad finish, it doesn't make you want to come back to it. And so It's really important for me to have a really good mouthfeel and a really good finish. And we actually started distilling in 2006. And so we had a long time, because there's no commercial laws in the state of Nevada until 2013. And so from 2006 to 2013, we figured out our mash bills. We knew exactly what we wanted to do. We tasted all of our grains. We experimented with different varieties of grains, different irrigation techniques, all these things, so that we knew what we wanted when this batch 1 came out, and we could hit the ground running.
That's really cool. So you guys have been distilling for 14 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
We got we got our federal experimental distilling license in 2006. So we could legally make it, experiment with it. There's no state laws, so we couldn't sell it. We couldn't let people taste it. We couldn't do anything with it. And so we were very small, but we had a lot of experience. We had a lot of experience by the time we were able to get the laws passed, and hit the ground running.
Now, I like the way you said in 2006, you got the federal permit to do it legally. So is that implying that prior to 2006 that there may have, no, I'm not even going to put I'm not going to.
A lot of farming, maybe?
Yeah, we're farming a lot. Yeah.
There you go. Okay. Yeah.
I'm farming hard. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. We talked about the bourbon just a little bit. So why don't you guys go ahead and tell our listeners a little bit about each of you, who you are, and really how you got involved in the business.
Yeah, I think Ashley should go first.
Sure. So me and Colby are the founders of the distillery, and my specific role in the company is primarily packaging, marketing. I do a lot of messaging. I take on the hospitality role. I manage the tasting room. I do a lot in the back office, but I'm also, hosting the tastings. I'm also doing the bottle signings with Colby, assisting him on the farm, but definitely not on a tractor like he is.
Unfortunately for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she's amazing. She's, obviously super smart. She actually got her marketing and PR degree. And so that fits so well together because, like she said, she does a lot of the packaging and the marketing and that side of it. And then I'm more on I grow the grains. My passion has always been agriculture. And so we were looking for a way that we could kind of showcase the grains that we grew. We just sold them on the open market, and there's no real future in that. There's very little money. A lot of years you're just lucky if you break even. And we were just looking for a way to showcase the whiskey, and we thought, what better way to do that than with grains? I'm sorry, showcase the grains, and what better way to do that than with whiskey?
That makes a lot of sense because, I mean, if you think about it, originally bourbon really grew out of farming, and the, farmers, people from Pennsylvania that traveled to Kentucky and westward, and they had the grains, the corn left over, that they couldn't sell or whatever. And they knew that it would go bad. So a lot of them would distill it just so they had a way to use that corn and preserve it in some fashion. So that's really cool. I mean, it's kind of a way to pay homage to the history of distilling itself, of American spirits. So that's really cool.
Yeah, thanks. As farmers, we're taking something that's somewhat perishable and we're making it less perishable. And so that's what's kind of fun for me, and to actually have a product to sell rather than just selling it to the feed market or cattle feed or anything else.
And I think what's really important to us, especially when we do have visitors that come out and see us and purchase from the tasting room, when you take home a bottle of our Frey Ranch bourbon or one of our whiskeys, it's the first time that any of those ingredients have ever left our possession. So it's something that we're really proud of, and it's essentially a piece of us that they're taking home, because we have so much passion and hard work put into that bottle that we're so proud of.
Yeah, and every single aspect we have control over. So from seed selection to irrigation management to harvesting the grain, storing, milling, mashing, fermenting, distilling, every single part of it, barrel aging, bottling, it all happens right here under our control. And so we can ensure that no corners are cut, but also it really helps round us out. So we really understand the whole process. And there's certain things you can do in the field to manipulate the grains for distilling purposes. So like, there's certain fertilizers that if we add, the quality comes down for distilling purposes. And so by growing it ourselves, we can sacrifice quantity for quality, which we do all the time.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that's really cool. Well, you've obviously put out a good product here. There's no question about that. So I'm going back to the grain, the corn, and I mean, you're very specific on your breakdown here. The rye is a winter cereal rye. Is that something unique about that, or is there? I mean, most people, when you say rye, people just think, okay, there's rye, but yours, it specifically says winter cereal rye. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, and it's winter rye and winter cereal rye. They're the same things. It's just a type of rye. Our rye actually is a Canadian variety.
Okay.
It's really funny because when we started, researching what varieties were best for distilling, we found a couple of varieties that a lot of distilleries use. And then we looked at the variety that we'd always planted. Our family has always planted, and it was the same variety of rye. And so this particular variety is a winter variety. And so what that means is we plant it in the fall, and it grows real slow all winter, which is really good because during the winter, it's stooling out. So the roots are growing down a little bit, and it's building this big, healthy root system so that in the spring, it can grow and be very vigorous. Whereas if we were to plant it in the spring, it has to do a lot of catch up to get caught up with the winter varieties. And so typically that's why we call them slow grown grains, because anytime you grow things slower, so over longer periods of time and slower, it's almost, not always, but almost always better for quality. And so when we can grow a winter rye versus a spring planted or other variety of rye, then it's almost always better.
Oh, that makes sense. So the winter wheat is basically, is it the same principle as the winter rye?
Yep. So we plant it in the winter. And so there's lots of different varieties. There's soft white, there's soft red, there's hard red, there's all kinds of different varieties. And there's spring varieties and fall varieties. And so ours are almost always winter when we can do it. We even grow a winter barley, which a lot of places can't grow malting barley in the winter because it's their climates are humid. It's really wet, lots of moisture. Here, we don't have a lot of rainfall. And so we're really fortunate because we can even grow really high quality malting barley that's a winter variety also because we're so dry and it's not a lot of rainfall here.
Gotcha. Okay.
So do you have issues in growing your corn? Because you sit at about 4,000 feet, and that's got to be a little bit stressful knowing that you can't have bourbon without corn, and corn is such a staple in the distilling process. Have you had or come across issues in that aspect of it?
No, not at all. And so, here in Fallon, it's kind of like we're known as like the oasis of Nevada, but it's also like this little banana belt where we have this ideal climate for growing all the crops. And so I've always grown a lot of corn, even not for the distillery. Before the distillery, we've always grown a tremendous amount of corn for dairies and other grain. And we have just the perfect climate for corn, because corn grows really well when it's hot during the day and cool at night. And what that does is it can grow during the hot days and breed during the cool nights. And that really helps to get the corn to grow and to fill out. And we're very fortunate to be in a great area to grow corn.
I know Johnny had talked about that with them. I guess they're kind of in more of an arid location, were they in Minton, Nevada?
Yeah.
And so they're in a good region, except they're, I'd say, 1,000 feet higher in elevation, maybe. And they're right at the base of these mountains that are really tall. And so they're quite a bit cooler. And there's like I said, we're like in this banana belt, and it's just, we're in the perfect region for growing wheat, rye, barley, and corn that we've always grown.
Yeah. And it worked out perfectly to start a distillery. So did you, Colby, I'm just curious, was this just something that you just decided back in the early 2000s or sometime, just said, hey, I think it'd be fun to to get into this? I mean, was it, how did you come about to make the decision to do this as a distillery, to move into that?
You know, we were selling a lot of grain to the dairy next door. And in the meantime, we've always had this passion of, like, we've made wine. So we're fermenting grapes and making wine and
brandy.
Yeah. Well, this is before the distillery.
Right.
And so we were selling all these grains to the dairy next door. And I was just sitting there saying, that's what we're known for. We're kind of for fun making wine and all this other stuff. But we are grain, we're grain farmers. We're a grain family. Why aren't we making something out of that too? And at the same time, I'd always loved whiskey and saying, like, why aren't I putting these together? And this is a natural for me,
Yeah. And I think in addition to being known for growing grains, we were known for growing high quality grains. So it was something that we felt like it was a good transition for us to take those grains that were really high quality, distill them into something that was also a very high quality. The better inputs into the distillery, the better outputs. So the higher quality grain, better whiskey.
Sure. Yeah, that makes absolute sense. So getting back to the whiskey, since we're at the end already of session 1, let's get some closing thoughts on this one. Matt, what about you? What do you think on the bourbon whiskey, Like, I hate when I say that, man. What do you think about the bourbon?
I'm really liking it. The longer it has sat in my glass here and opened up, the nose has gotten sweeter, and it's getting a little smokier, getting more of like a campfire smoke off of it, and still more of that really, really like great like corn flakes or frosted flakes with the sweetness on it.
Yeah, frosted flakes, man. Every time I take a sip of it, it's like frosted flakes. It's a little bit of that corn sweetness, but you get that sugary kind of flavor as well from that corn, and it's like a frosted flake. It's delicious, and then it dissipates into that peppery spiciness from that rye. It's just a really, really cool combination of flavors. So yeah, I really like this, guys. So what retail on this one? What are people looking in terms of retail for this bottle?
It should be around $49.
Okay.
That's the price. Yeah.
Okay. And in distribution, I guess I should probably ask you guys as well. We usually do that at the end, but since we're talking about it, what kind of distribution are you guys set up for right now?
Sure. So our bourbon is all over Nevada. So we're in about 500 different locations in Nevada. And then we just branched out to the Northern California market. And in 2021, we'll be doing a full broad California launch.
Okay.
Bourbon. Mm-hmm.
Great. So people wanting to get access to your stuff need to head out west to
right.
grab that.
Go to our website, and on the Buy It Now link, you'll see that we do have some e-commerce partners that are able to ship. Now, every e-commerce partner does ship to a couple different states. I know we don't have access to all 50 because of some of the control states, but if you really want it, you can head over to the website, click on the link, and see if one of them ships to your state.
But what a perfect excuse to have to go out to Nevada, though, right? Go buy some great whiskey. It's funny because I guess you the third group that we've had on from Nevada now. So it's funny because when you talk about bourbon, you don't normally think about Nevada, but we've been really impressed so far with what we're getting out of there. So that's really cool. Well, I'll tell you what, let's take a break, get a word from our sponsor, and we'll be back with more with Colby and Ashley Frey from Frey Ranch Distillery. Everybody just sit tight. We'll be back in just a second.
Hey, Bourbon Lifers. When you're out hunting for those hard-to-find bottles or just enjoying the distilleries of Central Kentucky, you're going to work up an appetite. And when it's time to refuel, we suggest that you visit our good friends Rebecca and Eric Burnworth at the Stave Restaurant. Located at 5711 McCracken Pike in Millville, Kentucky, close to Castle and Key and Woodford Reserve, the Stave Restaurant is just off the beaten path, nestled on the banks of Glens Creek. Chef Jonathan Sanning prepares amazing food each day featuring an elevated Kentucky-inspired cuisine. You can take our word for it, the food alone is worth the trip to the Stave. With a full-service bar, great bourbon flights, and signature cocktails, the Stave is the perfect place to catch up with friends after a fun-filled day of touring the local distilleries. And you can even purchase bottles of bourbon to take home with you while you're there. Make sure to follow the Stave on Instagram and Facebook at The Stave Kentucky, or visit them online at thestavekentucky.com to stay up to date on everything that's going on. The Stave Restaurant is a bourbon lover's paradise right here in the heart of bourbon country.
All right, everybody, welcome back for round 2 or session 2, whichever you prefer to call it, of the Bourbon Life Podcast. Matt's laughing at me already. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate that.
Anytime.
Yeah, I'm your host, Mark, and with me, as always, is my goofy, laughing co-host, Matt. He's not goofy. He's a good guy. Matt, what's going on, man?
Hey, not much, Mark. I'm just excited to be back for session number 2 here on the Bourbon Life Podcast. We have got some great guests with us. We have Colby and Ashley Frey of Frey Ranch Distilling in Fallon, Nevada, are joining us on the podcast tonight. So welcome back for session number 2.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're happy to have you guys with us tonight. And Matt is going to be really, really, really excited about this round because Matt is a rye kind of guy. So Colby, Ashley, you guys want to tell everybody what we're going to be drinking in this round?
Yeah, so this round is our bottled and bond rye whiskey. It's 100% rye, so there's no other grain in it. I'll let Ashley kind of talk about it too. But one of the cool things about it is it's bottled and bond. You guys are going to be drinking batch number 2, and we had batch 1 and 2, and we decided to do bottled and bond. And I intended on putting all of batch 1 and 2 in one batch together, but we had to separate them because one of the requirements for bottled and bond is it has to be distilled in the same distilling season.
Right.
And it just happened that we distilled at the end of one month, a few batches, and the beginning of the next month, and there were 2 different seasons. So we had to.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. That's right. That I guess that probably catches some people sometimes, obviously.
Yeah.
Like did you guys? So this is actually, this then is your second batch. But this is 100% the rye. So this is the winter cereal rye as well. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, 100% rye in the mash bill.
Okay. Now is it malted at all, or is there any malted rye at all? It's just all straight rye. Okay. I got you. And 100 proof, of course, because it's bottled in bond. So Matt, what are you picking up on this one?
Oh, it's just got such a great rye nose. I actually went over the weekend to that sample that Johnny sent us of your rye that just says Frey Ranch Rye, for the script, but went back for it again. And the nose on it it takes me back to my days I bring this up all the time working in a bakery, and just the fresh grain and the fresh baked scent of bread and of a bakery working in there. It's also got a really nice, like, zesty orange and citrus nose to it as well. I really enjoy that.
Right in the finish, like right here. I don't know what that's called, but I get grapefruit.
Oh, okay. I get a mintiness on that finish, which is kind of funny because usually if I drink a rye and it's because I get that pepperiness like in the middle of my palate, I really get a lot of that pepperiness, spiciness, and usually that would dominate, and I don't get a mintiness after that. But this is kind of unique because I'm getting that spiciness of a rye, but then also I'm picking up on the finish. I'm picking up a mintiness. Which I really, really enjoy because I love it. When I get a minty rye, I love it. So this is really good. Matt, are you picking up any mint at all, or is it just me?
I'm getting what you're saying, Mark. I'm picking up a lot of the herbal notes to it on the palate. I don't know if it's like as much of a minty taste, but there's definitely something herbal going on for me.
Yeah.
Also, like a little cocoa.
Yeah. I do get that. It's funny because we do have the tasting notes here, and I'm trying not to cheat, but as soon as you said that, I was like, you're right, Matt. I do get that cocoa, that not like a or not like a milk chocolate bar or something, but like a really nice 75-80% chocolate bar. It's got that
nice bitter cocoa taste to it, like a fresh cocoa. Also, I get graham cracker or some sort of like a nice baking spice cracker that's coming across in it as well, and that cocoa, a little bit of cinnamon, but also Mark, I get the herbal taste you have.
Yeah, very, very unique, because usually it seems like for me, like I said, I usually get one or the other. I really get that either the spiciness of a rye or that mintiness, herbalness to it. And this one seems to have a really good combination. And I'm surprised at how sweet it actually is as well. Mm-hmm. Talked about the cocoa, the chocolatey kind of flavor to it a little bit. But I pick up a sweetness on this, which again, when you think about 100 proof rye, I don't think you'd say, oh yeah, it's sweet. But I actually do pick up a nice sweetness, the zestiness that Matt talked about as well, citrusy kind of flavor as well. I'm detecting that also. So going back, we talked a little bit about the farm, the fact that you are a farmer, a lifelong farmer. Can you just talk a little bit about your family's history? Because you guys have been at this for quite a while, haven't you?
Yeah. So, and the importance of that, and like in the distillery is that anywhere you go in the world, farming is different. So if I went to the Midwest, if I went to Kentucky and I tried to farm the same way that we do things here, I'd fail miserably. And the same thing if they came here. And so by having that history of agriculture and farming here, there's been so many years of trial and error, that have been passed on to generation on how to do things, but not just in agriculture, but in our specific soil and in our climate and everything else. And so that really helps us to, understand and know the grains and how to grow them and, what to do to get the best quality.
Yeah. So now you guys have been at it though. Did the website say like 150, 180 or, it's.
So yeah, my family actually had some of the first deeded property here in northern Nevada, and they settled here in 1854. Nevada didn't even become a state until 1864. And so we've been continually farming in Nevada ever since. And so I'm very, very fortunate to have a farm. It's been passed on. I wouldn't have the farm today if it wasn't for my father and grandfather passing it down, just because agriculture values are so high and they don't make a lot of income. And so by my dad passing the farm on to me, and he sold it to me for what it was worth as a business, not necessarily the market value. And what that did is that gave me a huge amount of equity that I could go and leverage and build a distillery and expand upon my family's legacy.
Yeah. And I think that's just awesome. And, we were talking a little bit about your connection to Kentucky and Wilderness Trail. I think we were talking about that during the break, and the fact that, we talked about Pat Heist and his connection, he is like the yeast expert in the United States. There's no question, hands down, he is the man. But, the fact that he had his business, Firm Solutions, and then took that passion and carried that over into the whiskey industry. And obviously he and Shane have been super successful with what they're doing down there in Danville with Wilderness Trail. But it's very similar to what you're doing. You've got the farming background. It's what you've done. It's your livelihood. It's how you make a living. And you've carried that passion and that knowledge over into the distilling world now, which is just really cool that you're doing that. Yeah.
And that's why I've always thought that I had a really deep connection with like Dr. Pat and everybody else, because I feel like we have a very similar story where he took his passion and what he does in fermentation in yeast and expanded on that to the distillery. And I'm doing something very similar, like you said, on the farm, and expanding that to my love of whiskey.
Yeah. And it's kind of like with Dr. Pat, he can take his yeast and he can see how they were expressed through his whiskeys at like 5 years and 6 years and 7 years. And we're kind of doing the same thing, but with our grains. So, we not only know what the grain quality is in the field, but then we can see it expressed through whiskey in 5, 6, 7, 8 years down the road, which is it's really cool to be on both sides of it.
So how has your grain changed through the years just in the farming? So getting started, and you said, 2006, you started experimental distilling. what was the process like from what you were growing then to where you are now? Because you, of course, if you're putting stuff down in 2006, part of the process is waiting, because you have to put something in a barrel and wait to see how it interacts with the wood, how it interacts with your climate. So like the changes you might be making in the field are a few years away. That's gotta be quite a process. How was it for you?
So we didn't actually put anything into a barrel until 2014.
Well,
so
this is a big barrel. I mean, we experimented with all kinds of wood and everything else.
Yeah.
But what's really, so we don't have any older whiskey or anything like that laid down. But what was really cool about it is that what I learned at the very beginning is that we do the opposite of what we do for like a cattle farm, for example. And I could really geek out about this for a long time, but
go ahead.
There's starch and there's protein, and we're looking for starch in the distillery, not protein. And now cattle farmers a lot of times look for protein, and it's very important. And so now by putting on certain nitrogen fertilizers and all this other stuff, you boost your yield. But what you also do is you boost the protein. By putting on nitrogen, your protein levels go up. And now it's inverse with starch. So if your protein levels go up, your starch goes down. And so there's this balance there where we can't put on a lot of nitrogen, which lowers our yield, but then we get better quality because there's more starch, there's less protein. And so that's the first thing I learned, because before we just always thought like, grain is a commodity. There's prices that go up and down like a stock on the board of trade. And so I always just thought the more you yield, the more money you make, and that's what I used to think. And that's what almost all farmers should think if they're trying to stay in business. But for us, we start thinking about quality, not necessarily yields and quantity. And so that's the biggest thing that I had to first wrap my head around. But we really understand that relationship, with starch. Then there's also different varieties. And so we planted several different varieties of all the different grains, and they're really different, in their flavors, their textures, the way that they mill, the way that they ferment, the way that they react with heat and cooking them and everything else. And then what's really cool too is we malt all of our own barley right here on site. And so we use a 2-row barley. There's 2 rows and there's 6-row barley. The difference is 2-row has 2 little rows of seeds on them. 6 rows have 6. And the problem with 6-row barley is it doesn't malt as even because the grain size is very different. There's 2 big rows of grain on it, and then there's 4 kind of little spindly, puny rows on it. And it doesn't malt as easy. It's not vigorous. And in the malting process, you're basically germinating or sprouting the grain. And so you want a really even, consistent process. Otherwise, you're going to get an inconsistent product. And so we grow all 2-row barley, and we malt it all right here on site. And it's amazing to see that reaction and why malt is so important in the process of our bourbon, especially, with those enzymes that it's created.
Yeah. So going back to the rye. So this batch 2, this is bottled in bond. So the first batch was not bottled in bond, right? Or was it?
It was bottled in bond also.
Because it was from the first. Okay. So it's batch 1, but it's from the first distilling season. So you still put it out as a bottled in bond. Okay. That's
a couple days older.
So that's your second batch. So now you said you sold out of the first batch, right? Is that what
we sold out
instantly?
To the distributor, and they sold out within hours, and they were on batch 2. Then they tried to hold it for certain accounts that put it on the menus and things like that, and it sold so out, fast.
Yeah. So what kind of production? I mean, how many barrels when you're talking about your batches that you're doing? I mean, if you can talk about that, I don't want to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
But I mean, what kind of bottle production barrels go into your batches? What are you yielding out of that?
Yeah, and rye batches are much smaller than our bourbon batches. I think our first batch of bourbon was 160 barrels, so it's relatively large. Our first batch of rye, I think, was 7 or 8 barrels, and the next batch was 8 or 9, or vice versa. I forget. And our next batch is going to be. Oh man, I
wasn't there when you guys used
I forget. So we tasted through all the barrels a week ago today. So I can't even remember a week ago.
I know.
But we tasted through all the barrels, and we kicked out our favorite 3 just for extended aging, for doing something fun with them down the road, and then we're going to bottle the rest as batch 3. in the next couple of weeks when we get our next load of bottles.
But overall, I would say that bourbon is about 80% of our production, and rye is 15%. And
okay.
5% is some of our fun, like innovative stuff when we take like different grains that we grow on the farm, maybe oats or 100% wheat. And Colby can
my favorite thing to do is to play around with the different grains. And so we've made and that's why our rye is 100% rye. Because when we first started a long time ago, we said, I want to taste each grain by itself. I don't want to have any corn, any barley, anything in with rye. And I want to taste what it tastes like 100% rye. And I fell in love with it at 100%. So we left it at 100. But we also have 100% wheat whiskey in the pipeline, 100% oat whiskey. We have 100% malted corn whiskey. So it's all malted corn. We have a quad malt where we malted the wheat, rye, barley, and corn in the same ratios as our bourbon. So it's got the same mash bill, just all the grains are malted. It's kind of neat. We did a Scotch style, like a smoked, where we made our own peat. We took decomposed corn stalks. Peat is essentially decomposed plant matter over years.
Right.
We took decomposed corn stalks and we took this flour that comes off the mill. It's just a flour, mixed it with water, used that as a binder, and we pressed the peat in bread pans by using this kind of like binder corn flour as a binder, and made our own blocks of peat, and then smoked our estate, our malted barley that we grew on site, malted on site, and smoked it with that. And it's kind of like this unique
and we tasted it and it's so good.
It's good. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Now, these might only be 2 or 3 years old right now, maybe 4. Some of them are 4, but
tasted so good though.
And actually we have a 6-year-old oat whiskey, a 6-year-old wheat whiskey, and what else? Is that the only 2?
Those are the only 2 that were about
the first,
6.
The first year. And then we have all kinds of other fun stuff. We have a 5-grain bourbon with oats. We have a 4-grain bourbon where we replaced our wheat ratio with oats, and then another one where we replaced the rye with oats. We did make some 3-grain bourbons just to put away and kind of have for fun, where it's corn, barley, and rye, corn, barley, and wheat. 3 grains, high rye, and a wheater. And all this fun stuff that are super small quantities. And so that's what I'm kind of fun. I'm kind of excited. It's going to be super fun for me to start, putting those out and letting people try them.
So with those, are those going to be aged like the 4 or 5 year, 6 year type of range? I mean, you're going to hold them for that period of time. But
oldest ones right now are probably a little over 6 years old.
Okay.
We haven't released anything yet. Any of our specialty stuff. We really wanted to get a good hold with our bourbon first and our rye before we started, putting out anything. We didn't want to be an oat whiskey distillery that, they also have a bourbon. You know what I mean? We're a bourbon distillery that kind of has some fun stuff that we,
Yeah, and I mean, it is only 5% of our production, but like you could see how excited Colby gets when he talks about it.
It's 90% of the fun, though. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 5% of production, 90% of fun. I like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can tell because it's like we're having this good conversation, but then as soon as you start talking about that 5%, I mean, Colby just like he kind of springs forward and like comes to life about the excitement of the experimentation, which is that's awesome. That's where obviously you can be creative in your mash bill and what you're doing with your rye and your bourbon, but you can obviously be very, very creative and experimental with what you're doing in that 5%, and you can tell you're very passionate about that. That's really cool. So when are we going to see some of those products?
Soon. We're actually working on the labels.
Yeah, I think we're working on bottles right now too. So just because a couple of them we only have 1 or 2 barrels of.
Oh yeah, right.
So I want to put them in 375 so that I could get them in more people's hands, or it'd be more fun, and and so we're working on. We just ordered the mold for the 375, like our bottle right here. And that'll be about 6 or 8 months, and then we'll probably start releasing those. So I'm excited about those too.
Yeah, and that's cool because Woodford does that obviously with their or I can't remember what the series is, but they put out the 5-grain, the 4-grain, the 3. I mean, they've got all the double oaked, all those types of kind of experimentals that they are doing. They release all those in 375s just for the opportunity to get more bottles out there. So I think that makes sense. And speaking of bottles, in a break, I mentioned it, and Matt, it was funny because when Matt came over tonight and we were getting ready to pour, he picked up the bourbon. He was like, holy cow. I mean, these bottles, when you pick this up, I mean, you're picking up a pretty solid piece of glass here. I mean, this is really awesome. Can you talk a little bit about your bottles that you have here?
Yeah. So I'll jump in. This was kind of my passion, and something that I took the lead on was all the packaging. And yeah, they're very hefty, starting right with the topper. I mean, this is serious. It's not plastic. And when we were working on these, I think one of the things that we wanted was something that was really representative of what you'd find on the farm. So it's in the shape of a bolt, which if you go into the shop, you're going to see bolts and nails and screws.
She always says that I always bring, like, she checks my pockets when I get home, and I always have bolts, all that stuff in there.
I found them in the washing machine. We wanted something that really represented something you find on the farm. So it's a good place to start with the topper. And so as you work your way down the glass, the label, we loved this. We call it Frey Ranch Yellow, and we pulled that from inspiration from corn. And if you look at the label and you look at like an ear of corn, they're identical. And it really represented, what you'll see on the farm in addition to the sunrise and the sunset out here. Okay. And then it does represent, I don't think Colby has his belt buckle on today, but it wraps around the whole entire bottle. But this shape is the shape of a belt buckle that was handed down from his dad, his grandfather, his dad, Colby. Yeah. So if you run into him like at an event, he more than likely will have his belt buckle on, which is really cool. Just a nod to the generations before us that have really paved the road and allowed us to be here today to excel and make this amazing product. And then again, I have so many favorite parts, but I think my favorite part is if you turn the glass over on the bottom, it has what we call a secret message. And be good to the land and the land will be good to you. Just taking care of the soil, taking care of the property, passing it down from generation to generation is really important for us. That's how Colby got here, and that's what we're going to pass down to our family and our kids.
Yeah, it's the foundation of our bottle, which is also kind of as farmers, it's got to be our foundation, because if we don't take care of the land, if we don't take care of our environment and everything else around us, then we don't have a future. And so I'm very fortunate that my father and my grandfather took very good care of the farm and passed it on to the next generation in as good or better condition than they received it in. And I anticipate to do the same. I'm really excited to pass this farm on to my kids. If hopefully they want to be farmers. If not, that's okay. But that's our, we got to be good to the land, and it'll be good to us.
Yeah, no, I had not even noticed that.
Yeah.
So I'm so happy you pointed that out. That's Matt. You got the bottle, you got the bourbon in there. I'm assuming. Yeah, you got the same thing on there. So
yeah, I didn't notice that at first either, but
I had not noticed that.
Yeah, there it is. And it's
you don't see it and you don't notice it, but then you flip it over and it's something that it's a strong foundation. Like it's the bottom. It's a strong foundation. It's something that's like our Frey family motto. It's on the bottom of the glass, and it's a great starting point. Something for us to always remember.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking at the label too as well. So it's a beautiful bottle, beautiful design. The logo that's on the bottle itself as well. That's like, it's not etched in. It's like, I don't know what you call it.
Medallion.
A medallion. There you go. It's got the FR. Is that the farm logo? I'm assuming. Is that your?
Yes. That's the rondelle or the medallion. It kind of matches what's on the topper here.
So yeah, and that's the shape of our distillery. And then they're right next to the distillery is some silos right there. And Ashley really wanted to make like a modern take on farming and agriculture without being way outside the area. Sure. But there's so many old timey brands, and that's really not who we are. We're kind of like a modern take on agriculture and distilling.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And this bottle reflects that. I say that, but then again, I can look at this and it almost has kind of an Art Deco type of feel and look to it. Ashley, I don't know if you're going for that, but I talked about the fact I love like the big band music and the old time music like that. But when I look at this, it's very modern, it's very contemporary, but there's almost like a touch of that, to it as well. So
yeah, and
very,
there's so many different routes and so many different ways that we could have taken the bottle. We could have focused on Colby's family history. His grandfather farmed this ground. We could have, shown the grains on the bottle, but we felt like we wanted it to represent me and Colby. And we're super happy with where it landed, because we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for everything around us that allowed us to kind of get to this point.
Silos are where we store the grain. And what I like about it is it almost looks like, if you think about it, it's straight, sides are straight, kind of looks like a silo. And that's all we're really doing is we're storing our grain inside these bottles, which is whiskey now, but it's grain, right? Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's very cool. I'd not thought about that, but yeah, I'm originally, this is a Bourbon Life bingo, Matt. I'm originally from Eastern Kentucky. There's lots of farmers over there, and silos everywhere. So yeah, I had not even picked up on that, but it does. I can definitely see that resemblance in that. So that's very cool. And Matt, this bottle, I don't know, that rye bottle, that might stay with me. This is really good rye. So let's get back to that since we're at the end of round 2 here. But Matt, let's close it out and talk some more about the rye real quick.
I love it. 100% rye. You're not going to twist my arm to get me to try 100% rye for certain. I love a big heavy rye, and it doesn't drink like that though. It's not overpowering. It has really nice subtle nuances in the flavor. I appreciate that it's bottled in Bond, so there are no gimmicks to hide behind with it. And I actually I put a little bit of just a drop of water in it. And
what?
So much more. It like just to see what would happen, and it gets so peppery and this beautiful, nice spice and a little bit of floral aroma coming out of it with just a touch of water in it. It's really good. I liked it either way, but it was just a little curious experiment that I had done over here.
Well done, Matt. Well, I have to say, I'm just digging this. I mean, it's 100 proofer. It does not drink. I think when you say 100 proof, to some people, they think, oh my gosh, that's going to be really hot, or really, it's going to burn me up. And if you tell somebody it's 100% rye, I think they're going to be like, oh my gosh, no. But man, it's so sweet. It's got that nice spicy finish to it. I'm really, really enjoying it. Matt, we're going to arm wrestle over this bottle, because I know you usually get to take the rye bottles home with you, but we might have to wrestle over this one, man. All right. I'll tell you what, let's take a break, get a word from our sponsor, and we'll come back for round 3 with Ashley and Colby Frey from Frey Ranch Distilling, and we'll be back in just a second. Thanks. Hey, Bourbon Lifers. We want to take just a second and tell you a little bit about 3 Chord Whiskey. 3 Chord's line of whiskeys embody the spirit of creativity. The whiskey is a true collaboration between producer and composer Neil Giraldo and master blender distiller Ari Sussman. The 3 Chord team of expert blenders, coopers, and sensory professionals have developed a multi-step process they call perfectly tuned taste. This process begins by carefully selecting the finest bourbon and rye whiskeys from Kentucky, Tennessee, and Indiana, and then blending them all together. After each blend is completed, the 3 Chord team then applies their proprietary process of pyrolysis, that's a lot to say, isn't it? Which involves heating American oak to precise temperatures to release specific flavor and aroma compounds. Then they use another proprietary method called rhythmic disruption process, and that's more than just playing music to a bunch of barrels, which integrates all of those related compounds into the blended spirit. Finally, each small batch blend of 3 Chord is evaluated by a trained sensory panel to ensure an uncommon depth of flavor, character, aroma, and a perfectly tuned taste in each bottle. With their introductory blended bourbon, their Amplify Rye, Strange Collaboration, which is a Pinot Noir finished Kentucky bourbon, their 94 rated 12-bar reserve, and the brand new highly coveted 15-year Kentucky bourbon they call the Whiskey Drummer, there's a lot of options available from 3 Chord. Like the feeling you get when you hear that perfect song, you'll know that the 3 Chord line of whiskeys are right from the first sip. They resonate with so much flavor, you'll want an encore. Find out more about 3 Chord whiskeys and distribution in your area at www.3chordbourbon.com. All right, everybody, welcome back for the third and final session and/or segment or round or whatever you choose to call it. I'm your host, Mark, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Matt. Matt, you hanging in over there, man?
Oh, you know it, man. We've made it this far. We're definitely going to have everybody stick around for our exciting conclusion.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, we have joining us from Fallon, Nevada, Ashley and Colby Frey from the Frey Ranch Distillery here on the Bourbon Life Podcast. Welcome back, guys. Thanks for sticking it out with Mark and I this far.
Where are you going with that, Matt?
What?
Look like you're kind of like, okie dokie. Yeah. Hey, welcome back. We're here. Colby and Ashley, thank you guys again. And thanks for sticking around with us. You know, sometimes we lose guests after the first or second session. So, you know, we're happy you guys chose to stick around and hang out with us.
You guys are fun.
Well, well, I tell you what, you guys want to tell everybody what we have for this port up for this? I'm excited. I'm super excited about this one. So
yeah, you're stumbling over your words there, giving me grief.
Man, I know.
This one is a tongue twister too, though. It's our single barrel proof store pick, which is actually, this one's our distiller's pick that we sell in the tasting room. But this is our barrel program is all barrel proof, and they're all single barrels and store. There's several stores around Northern Nevada and Las Vegas that have barrel picks. So this is barrel number 22. It's a little over 6 years old. It's 63.19% alcohol. 126.38 proof. It's the same mash bill. Everything is our traditional bourbon. It's just when we bottled our original batch one, we tasted through all 180 barrels we had. We kicked out our 20 favorites for different reasons. I mean, we had some spice bombs. We had some caramel, super caramel.
Super fruity.
Yeah, fruity ones. And we had all kinds of fun barrels. Vanilla, some of them had all kinds of really interesting, fun, unique flavors. And we saved those for our barrel program. So this is...
And this is, like Colby mentioned, barrel 22. That's only the 22nd barrel we ever filled. So way back in the...
Oh, really?
Oh, wow.
Second barrel, yeah.
So this isn't just like barrel number 22 of the single barrel.
Yeah. Filled barrel number 22.
Like barrel 22.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we are drinking liquid history right here.
I like it.
Yeah.
Yes, I like that. So Matt, have you had a chance to give this one?
I've not really had
You've been taking notes over there, man.
I know. I'm sitting here taking notes. So come back to me on this one. Let me get
no problem.
A second
Matt,
with it.
Matt is the studious one of the two of us. You know, I like to sit and drink, and Matt likes to take notes and be very thorough about what he's doing over there. So I appreciate that because he does a great job with that. But man, this smells so good.
Yeah, what are you picking up, Mark?
I definitely pick up some barrel on this one. You know, I pick up that oak, but I pick up picking up some vanilla, the sweetness to it as well. There's, you know, it's funny because sometimes when I get those barrel proofs, Matt, you know, I say this every once in a while, I get almost kind of that bubblegummy kind of flavor, that nose to it. It reminds me of the Topps baseball cards when I was a kid, and I'd open up a pack of baseball cards and they had that stick of gum in there, and I absolutely loved it. And just love that smell that came off of that. And I don't know if it's the cornstarch that was on the gum itself or the gum, but that sweetness. And I'm picking that up on this one as well. And I love when I get that on these barrel proofs. So what about you, Matt? What do you got now?
I pick up a lot of dark stone fruit, like a lot of plum, some raisin, but I get a lot of leather.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm getting like a lot of leather and oak with this one, almost like a little bit of pipe tobacco.
Nice. Colby, Ashley, what about you guys? What do y'all get on this one?
Ashley's the best at this. Yeah.
I get just since this is our 4-grain bourbon, I get the traditional caramel, butterscotch, creme brulee. I'm definitely getting some of those like rich berry flavors, like maybe like the chocolate covered like cherry or.
Yeah.
And this one was our distiller's pick. And one of the reasons why we picked this one is because it wasn't totally out there. It wasn't the fruit bomb. It wasn't the spice bomb. It wasn't, it's kind of a good representation of our traditional bourbon, just a little bit elevated in concentration, flavor, and alcohol.
Yeah. It's funny because I've gone and taken a taste of this now, and the finish on it, it's almost like a chocolate covered cherry.
Yeah.
I get a lot of cherry on this one. Matt was talking about stone fruits on the nose, but definitely for me on the palate and finish, I pick up, the cherry flavor and almost a little bit of that kind of chocolatey flavor as well. So that's an awesome combination there.
I get the wheat like on the front of the palate. It's so creamy and rich. And I love, like, that's like my favorite part of our bourbon. Like right when it hits your tongue, it's amazing.
But for me, it's like, I think I said this before, but it's as important or more important, the finish for me. And so like when I'm tasting through all the barrels, the 180 barrels that we tasted for this, to kick these out, if it doesn't have a good finish, it doesn't even get kicked out. It's got to have that good finish. Sure. That's as important than anything else.
Yeah. And what I like, some bourbons you taste them and you get kind of that tannic finish where you get that dry mouth. And I don't get any type of really tannic finish off of this. It doesn't dry my mouth out. I get the sweetness. I get that spiciness. It could, the 4-grain combination, it's really good. But that chocolate covered cherry just keeps coming back to me every time I take a sip. Matt, what about you? See you working it over there. Caught you mid drink, man.
Yeah, you did. Well, first, the finish on this is just as remarkable as your Frey Ranch straight bourbon. Wow, the finish is really inviting, really invigorating. It's got peppery finish. I'm also picking up some sweetness, and it's like you were saying, Mark, it's not tannic, it's not drying at all, but it has this really, really great warmth to the finish. And Ashley, like you were saying, I pick up the wheat giving a really nice creamy mouthfeel. It's almost like I don't want to say that I'm picking up like coconut milk, but it has like that thick, creamy consistency that you might get. And I'm like, something about it is bringing up like Thai spice flavor, like a curry. Like I'm picking up maybe some ginger or some lemongrass in it as well. But it's phenomenal, regardless of what I'm blabbering about. It's really good.
I was gonna say, in case you haven't noticed, Matt worked in a restaurant for years and also in a bakery, so he's got quite a bit of experience with that. That's why I always ask Matt what he picks up first, because it's good to get what he's picking up. All right, so talking about these single barrels, and can you talk about your program, because you guys launched that this year, right? So can you talk a little bit about your barrel program and the success and things that are going on with that? Yeah.
So we call it, we oversubscribe to our barrel program. There's so many people that have been so supportive of our traditional, our flagship 90 proof bourbon.
Yeah.
And, that we thought we'll sell 10 barrels, including 1 or 2 for the tasting room. And anyways, we ended up doing way more than that, because there was so much interest in it that we just had to, for all the people that have supported us and been there for us, in the state of Nevada here. And so we just launched it only in the state of Nevada. So there's a few bottles left, but at the tasting room, we thought, we might sell 1 or 2 this year, barrels. And I think we're on barrel number 3, and it's almost gone. We just bottled it a couple days ago. Wow. And it's already almost gone again. And so we're really fortunate to have so much support here in Nevada.
That's great. So, I mean, obviously you guys are having a lot of success. You're selling out. I mean, you're really doing well with what you're producing. So is the focus is it going to be on farming still, or is it going to be shifting more to farming for purposes of supporting the distillery? What's your thought on that?
It'll always be both, because my passion's always been farming and agriculture, and sure. And the whole, what differentiates us from all the other distilleries is that we grow all of our own grains here. And so, we will grow the distillery and eventually that'll outpace the farm or whatever, not outpace it, but, we'll grow on the farm. But right now we grow a few hundred acres for the distillery, and we still grow quite a bit of alfalfa and other crops that actually go around the world. So what's really crazy is that we're in such a good growing area here that we can grow alfalfa, for example, and it goes to, this year it's going to China, Dubai, Taiwan, and Japan. And so they can actually ship it around the world to these other countries, and it's just because of the quality that we can grow here.
Wow.
Yeah, and you guys are what'd you say, Matt? 4,000 feet above sea level? Is that right?
Yeah, we're 3960 here at the ranch. Yep. And so we're high elevation, and we call it the high desert. And what that does is that we have four distinct seasons. So, we have down to 0 degrees for the coldest part of the winter, for a week or two. And it gets up to over 100 degrees for the hottest part of the summer. And so that really helps with that aging process. That's so important for that expansion and contraction. It expands in the hot summers, it contracts during the cold winters. And so we have 4, definite distinct seasons here for that aging process and everything else. So we're really fortunate to be here.
Yeah.
Have you had to alter your aging process or change rick houses or design anything differently because of that process, because of having the changes so much in temperature and season?
That's a good question. So we don't do much different. Nothing's insulated, nothing's heated, nothing's cooled. But what we do is we have to add a lot of humidity. And that humidity is really important because, we're the driest state in the nation here. And that for a lot of reasons, it's better on the farm side for growing the grains. We don't have mildew problems, fungus, mold, all these other problems that other farmers might have in the field and storing their grains and everything. But in the warehouse, that's actually a negative, obviously, because the angel share will more evaporate out of the barrels. Right. But also at high humidity, there's more more alcohol that evaporates out of the barrels. And at low humidity, there's more water that evaporates out of the barrels. And so the proof will actually go up at low humidity. And we don't want that to happen because we don't want to have to add as much water to get it down to barrel strength. So by having a lot of humidity, we now have a more concentrated, flavorful, we don't have to add as much water, a better product in general.
Do you guys barrel at 125 or what do you?
Yeah, just under 125, 124-ish, right there. And
gotcha.
And it stays really close. The one we're tasting right now is 126. We actually just blended our batch 2 of bourbon. And the proof was 124.8 average of, all of the barrels. So
of cash strength.
That's cash strength. Yeah. And so it almost held its proof exactly, over the time, which is really cool because, we don't want to have to add that much water to it to get it down to 90 proof.
Yeah. I mean, that obviously can change your flavor profile and what you're looking to get out to your customers. So speaking of that, I mean, when you're blending these down, are you blending to a specific profile, what you have in mind, what you want it to taste like? Or do you just say, hey, these are the barrels that we're going to use, and then kind of blend it together and go with, wherever the barrels kind of take you? Matt, I'm sorry, that's usually your question.
No, go for it.
I was feeling that. I was feeling it tonight, man. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And so we taste every barrel. Our distiller, Russell, and I taste every barrel. And if one's off or one doesn't fit our flavor profile, we kick it out. Or if it's exceptional for some reason, we kick it out. And then we blend the rest. And that's why we decided to put batch numbers on there, because each batch might be slightly different. They're not going to be drastically different. This batch actually tastes very similar to batch number 1. And so we're really excited about that. But we also blend enough barrels that it really gets a pretty consistent, product also.
And I think for me, what's really important is that we can taste through all 4 of those grains. I mean, there's a reason why we wanted all 4 of them there, and we want to be able to taste that wheat and taste that rye and have the sweetness of the corn come through. And so being able to hit kind of all those touch points are important.
Yeah. It's funny because I'm going back and still working on this barrel proof. And it's almost like at times I get almost a hint of like cherry cola, which is really good because I was picking up the chocolate covered cherry. And now it's kind of like a hint of a cherry Coke or something. Which is delicious. So with your grains, Colby, do you create your own grains? Do you do experimentation with grains? I mean, how do you do that?
Yeah, that's another really good question. So in the field, every year we do several trials, and we'll plant a little bit of a different varieties. We might, one check. So we have different checks. Those are irrigation, there's levees, and we call them checks. And so we might irrigate one different, there's several things that we do to experiment every year, but then the majority of what we do is what we know we should do and have done in the past or whatever worked in the past. And so like this next year, I think we're going to do 13 varieties of corn in a trial. And
Wow.
so we'll test each variety. We'll test the starches and the proteins and all the other things. We'll mill a small amount of them to see if they mill better. Maybe there's, some characteristic that we that's better than what we normally plant. But the variety, the majority of the field will be the variety that we know does well and that we've done really well in the past with. And so we got to continually evolve. There's always chances for improvement. So this year we planted 3 different kinds of barley. Because in malting barley, it's different than your traditional spring barley that we might have planted in the past, and so we want to know which barley germinates, has the best germination rates, and is the best quality and everything else. And so we're continually evolving, but we know we have our set standards that we use, but we're always testing in the field.
Yeah, it's funny because as you're talking, I'm thinking back to like. We had Fred and Freddie Noe from Jim Beam on the show a couple months ago. And I mean, Fred goes back old school. Booker Noe was his dad. And, a lot of the things that were done were just by taste, just by what what you experience, what you do. And then there's obviously a move in the distilling process now towards science and, the scientific sides of things. But I mean, it sounds like you're kind of in the middle of both worlds there. I mean, it's experience, it's what you've done, it's what it's what's been handed down to you. But then also it seems like you're kind of edging towards a little bit, maybe some scientific things where you're measuring things and rating things. I mean, what's the trade-off there? I mean, how do you do that?
I think that there's an importance for both. And if you don't look to the past on what worked and doesn't work, it's really hard to get a base on what you can do better for the future. And so it's really important to, not discount things from the past, but always know that you could get better. And so I tell everybody with better inputs, you end up with better outputs. And so with better grains, for example, and with us continually experimenting, we're going to end up with better whiskey. And so it's really important for us. And that's why we kind of take this modern approach on agriculture. It's not just the way it used to be. It's the way it used to be kind of combined with the way that we hope that it will be, or we're going to strive for.
Yeah, man, I'm telling you what, I keep going back and tasting this barrel proof, and this is absolutely amazing. Matt, what are you thinking over there?
Yeah, I'm really enjoying it. And I'm picking up, we had talked about berries. It's now, maybe it's just stuck in my head, but I'm getting so much, like a ton of strawberry, like a really juicy strawberry on the palate on this one now as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, it's so good. We're gonna have to figure out a way to get a bottle of this. I'm just saying. We're gonna have to.
Mark, I need you to taste that rye now and tell me what you think of it now.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna go back because we talked about. Yeah. Let me.
So whenever I drink the barrel proof and then I taste the rye afterwards, the rye just tastes like candy. Like there's no alcohol in it. It just tastes like you're drinking candy.
Like liquid sugar.
I accidentally finished all of my rye, but I went back to just the 90 proof bourbon, and I had a very similar effect. But the finish still on the 90 proof on your regular bourbon, just that finish was so pronounced. I still picked it up, and that long, spicy, peppery finish was still there, and it really stood out for me.
Yeah, I'm just telling you, it's funny because every glass I'm drinking out of, the rye, the barrel proof, and the bourbon earlier, every time I take a pour of it, the legs on it, I mean, it's amazing. You guys everything's non-chill filtered.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. So you're getting the oils and things, carrying over into the whiskey, and into the glass. But every time I take a drink and set my glass down, I can just see the legs just slowly. You talk about the slow grown grains. It's like these legs are just like slow legs because they slowly go back down the glass. But I agree. I went back to that rye, and it's like drinking liquid candy after drinking this barrel proof, man. I just had to finish that out for good measure. Yeah. Mm. It's funny because now I went back to that rye and I talked about the mintiness, but I'm almost getting a bit of a black tea or a tea kind of note to that. I don't know if you guys have ever picked that up or not, but
I get a tea chest. So, when you when a box of all the different teas, you just get aroma with all of them mixed together. So tea chest is kind of what I sometimes pick up.
Yeah. No, it's funny because I went back to it and after it'd been sitting there for obviously 15, 20, 30 minutes, whatever. And picking that up. So, I was going to ask you guys a question. You talked about your barrels and everything. So where do you guys get your barrels from with for the whiskey?
Yeah, that's a good question too. So all of our barrels come from either Barrel 53 or Independent Stave.
Okay.
So we like them both for different reasons. I mean, Barrel 53 has they also have a stave mill, their family. And so it's kind of cool because, I feel like they have the choice of quality wood and everything else. And then ISC is just kind of the industry standard for barrels. And
good quality on both of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, definitely. What kind of char are you guys getting on your barrels, or do you have a set char on those?
We do. And so all of the staves, the big part of the barrel is char 4, and then the heads are char 3. And so we like that because it kind of adds a little bit of complexity, and there's a little bit of difference and nuances in each that impart different flavors.
Yeah. So, Colby, I'm kind of amazed at the fact, I mean, you've been a farmer for life. It's what you wanted to do, which is great. And then you decided, hey, I think I want to do some distilling. So, I mean, have you worked with other people? I mean, how did you get to the point? I mean, because it's pretty amazing what you guys have been able to do. I mean, it really is. The stuff that we're drinking tonight, it's very, very good. So for a guy that just said, hey, I think I'm going to experiment with some distilling to come up and start producing stuff like this. I mean, how did that happen? I'm impressed.
Well, thank you. One of the things, growing up, my dad was great because we did a little bit of everything. So we built wagons from scratch. I mean, out of wood, full-size wagons. We rebuilt probably 30 old antique tractors, and so I learned how to paint. I learned how to do mechanical. I learned how to weld. We built trailers to hold the tractors so we could take them to shows and stuff, from scratch, just sticks of metal and some axles that we, threw together. And we did all of our own plumbing. We built houses and all kinds of stuff together. And it really gave me a confidence on how things worked, but also that it's not there, you can do anything. And I hate people when they say no, or you can't do something. I'm like, watch this, I'm gonna show you how to do it there. Not
yeah, no, I get it.
It bothers me when people say, think negative or aren't positive or don't believe in themselves or anything like that. So, we took that to the distillery, and I knew from the beginning that we couldn't compete if we didn't have something really high quality. And so we took it every step of the way. And so we looked at the grains, how can we get the best quality grains? And then we take the next step and we say, all right, what kind of mill do we use? And then what kind of mash cooker are we going to get? What kind of fermenters? And actually getting our license in 2006, but no state laws until 2013 in the state of Nevada, gave me several years to figure everything out. And everybody says, how do you do it? And it's kind of like, how do you eat an elephant? It's one bite at a time. You focus on whatever you're doing, you do a really good job at it, and then you move on. And so from the beginning, we always said, we don't care if it takes a little more time. We don't care if it costs a little bit more money. We're going to do whatever it takes to get the best quality within reason, of course, Sure. And so that's why we didn't want to release any young whiskeys or any unaged whiskeys or anything like that. And so it's really important for me, especially putting our name on something, to make sure that we didn't cut any corners along the way.
Yeah. And you didn't source stuff. No. I'm assuming. Yeah. So, I mean, that's what's so cool, because a lot of distilleries, obviously when they start, they're going to start, they do the clear liquids, and then they also source, to get some product out there. So that's pretty impressive that you guys made that decision, that you wanted to wait until you had a product that was ready to go out. So.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with sourcing anything, and
sure.
There's wrong with putting out white whiskeys, but that's just not who we are. We really wanted to showcase our grains here, not source from somebody else or
yeah. And I
anything
always
like that.
tell people it was really easy for us to wait because we got to taste it out of the barrel all the time.
Yeah.
For others to wait because they didn't have that luxury. But I think as we tasted at 2 years and at 3 years and at 4 years, and then when it was, almost 5 years old, it was like, okay, we're ready. Like it's really good.
And for me too, I'm really fortunate because of my ancestors and my father and my grandfather and my father sold me the ranch for what it was worth as a business, which isn't that much. And so I had a huge amount of equity in the ranch that I could go and borrow against and build the distillery and do it right. And then be able to wait the 5 years until we released a product instead of, having to sell stuff right away.
Yeah. I mean, that's awesome. That's great that it's just like kind of the stars aligned and everything's worked out. So, all right. So what's coming up for you guys? I know we talked a little bit earlier about some of your experimental stuff. So anything else coming up for you guys that's going to be coming out soon, or anything you want to share with everybody?
I think just as far as expansion, I think I mentioned we are going into the California market next year. We're super excited to be able to have that full broad launch of our bourbon and our ryes statewide in California. Just proximity. I mean, we're right over the hill. So we're planning to be in California a lot next year. And then I know, like Colby mentioned, his experimental series is really something he's excited to get in a bottle and share with people.
Great. So if people come out to visit you guys, they're going out to Fallon, Nevada. So what's the experience? What do you guys have out there? What all can they get involved? Are you guys still open right now? I mean, I don't know what's.
We are. So COVID's been crazy, for everybody, but we're open on Saturdays, noon to 4. We do complimentary tours and tastings. We want people to be able to experience the still room, the fermentation room. We go through the barrel house. You can taste the 3 whiskeys that we're currently selling, the flagship bourbon, the rye, and then we also have our single barrel. And we just want people to come out and visit us on the farm. I mean, we're out here, we're 60 miles east of Reno, and we really enjoy when people come out and kind of experience agriculture and farm life, and you can see the grains growing in the field. I know we've got some rye right on the driveway, but in the summer we have corn, and you can see the barley and the wheat and everything kind of fully matured.
Yeah, and if you guys come out, we'll put you to work for a couple days.
Hey, that's no problem for us. And actually, I'm surprised it seems to be kind of a Nevada tradition here. We had Aaron Chepanik from Smoke Wagon on, and during one of our breaks, he hopped on the forklift and was stuff around in the background. I was expecting you all to maybe still be at work for us, but yeah, we'll come out and roll some barrels.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah, we might even do some farm work for you. It wouldn't be the first time for me, so that'd be perfectly fine. So we got quite a few reasons to come out to Nevada and visit some people. So we would love to do that. So your products right now, you're available in Nevada, and soon hopefully in California as well. But then you also, you said earlier, Ashley, that you're working with some online companies.
E-commerce partners. There's some on our website where they can, the buy now, ship later kind of model, the Bounty Hunter, Roco, Blackwell's. They're on our website, so you can click there, send them to your door.
DC.
Oh, Selbach. Yeah,
Selbach too.
Selbach. Okay. Yeah. So people can find the products there. And like I said, Ashley, I'm assuming you're the Instagrammer.
I do take the lead on social media. Yeah.
It's funny because that's what I do, and we've got like 40. I think we just crossed over 44,000 followers now.
Holy cow.
But yeah, man, I've been seeing a lot of stuff. A lot of people posting stuff about you guys, which is great. So we're very, very happy to see that for you guys. So let's get some finishing thoughts, Matt. Since we're at the end around, we've gone over a little bit. Sorry about that, but finishing thoughts. It always happens that way,
It always does. I don't even know why we even talk about a time.
I know. We shouldn't even say 20-minute segments. We'll just say 3 segments of whatever happens.
Yeah.
Right?
That's 3 segments of whatever happens. I like it.
Yeah.
But this is 2 thumbs up. I can't really say too much. I can say a ton about it, but I don't want to sit here and just blabber. But this is really great. You kick this barrel aside for a certain reason, and it definitely shows. It's got a lot of really great characteristics about it. The mash bill on it. It's fun tasting this against your 90 proof offering, and then going back and kind of swapping samples between the two and tasting some of the characteristics and the differences. But this is really great, and everything that you've given us and that you're giving the consumer, it really shows the passion that you bring. And I thought it was really neat when you were saying that when someone is drinking this for the first time, it's the first time it's coming out of your possession, since all the grain and everything, it's all been in your hands, from the thought behind it to putting it in the bottle to getting it to us. So I really appreciate the time and the attention to detail and everything that you all have done with that. And that's a really, really unique way to think about it, that anytime somebody picks up a bottle, that's the first time it's left your property. That's really cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. I agree with that, Matt. Very well said. All right. So, and I'm a big fan of this barrel proof. You know, I'm gonna work over this little sample jar and finish the little droplings that are in there. But that's we're gonna have to get some more of that for sure. That's really good. I mean, guys, everything we had tonight, it's been really, really good. So very, very impressed with what you guys are doing, and I'm very thankful for Johnny, who got us together. Mm-hmm. And I'm digging that hat, Colby. I'm just telling you, man.
Okay.
I'm all about the hats. So that's something that's available on your website, I'm assuming.
No, just
no.
Yep. So I'm gonna write a note right here.
We'll get
No, you don't have to do that. I was just going to say, I mean, that's awesome. I love the hat, because obviously, you know, I would offer this hat that I'm wearing tonight, but it was a one of a kinder.
Wow.
And that's the only one in existence, but it's a barrel stave that was shaved down into, yeah. Cool. So,
and Matt, we don't have any beanies.
No beanies.
That's
no
all.
Beanies
I'll look forward to it though.
There you go. All right, guys. So before we close it out tonight, anything else you guys want to add? Anything?
We appreciate you guys having us on, and appreciate Johnny for setting us up with you guys. It was great.
Yeah, definitely. We really appreciate that. Matt, anything else?
I'm just so glad that you were all able to take the time to sit down with us, and what a cool experience to see and to hear about it from farm to glass and everything, all the steps that you all have taken along the way, and the attention to detail and the careful process that you've put into it, and your passion that's not only gone into the product, but into the packaging as well. And these are like beautiful, beautiful bottles, and it's the right product to go inside that packaging. You all have really done a great job.
Thank you.
Yeah, very well said, Matt. All right. So with that said, I'm going to thank our sponsor, the Stave Restaurant, located in Millville, Kentucky. So make sure to check them out. We love what they're doing out there, and we appreciate their support out there in Millville, Kentucky. Check them out online at thestavekentucky.com. And hey, we appreciate you guys listening, and I'm going to close it out. Send us home with our tagline, which is, may your glasses always be full, and may you keep on living the bourbon life.
Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of the Bourbon Life Podcast. Our mission at the Bourbon Life is simple: to share our passion for all things bourbon with you every week. And we'd really love to hear your thoughts on how we're doing. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at The Bourbon Life. You can also contact us by email at thebourbonlife@gmail.com. And you can always find us on your favorite podcast platform. If you have a moment, we'd love it if you would rate us and give us a review. So until next week, we hope your glass is always full and that you keep on living the bourbon life.